So now we have our Startup Expo, where 3 startups are presenting to a jury composed of industry fellows and being led by an incredible host that we have today. So the startups presenting are we have Miguel Newman, CFO at Caramel Micro Foods. We have Jasmine Rabbit, co-founder and CEO at Kinoko Tech, and Tasnim Karodia, CFO and Zonzi Meat. Our mentors today, holding our jury, are Eric Ipavec, former Danone VP and CEO and IPA business partner, Olga Yermolenko, family office advisor and startup mentor and venture scout, and Andrew Ive, founder and managing general partner at Big Idea Ventures. Our moderator is Albrecht Wolfmeyer, international and national head of ProVeg Incubator. Guys, it's amazing to be here with you today. And Albrecht, please take it from here.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure being with you. Thanks for the invitation and thanks for joining this session. I can hardly wait to see the pitches and also to hear what the panelists have to say and what they want to discuss. So, hi Andrew, hi Olga, hi Eric. Great to be on this Startup Expo with you today or this evening here in Germany. I hope you've had a great day so far. So yeah, I would say let's kick it off. Each startup has 3 minutes to present. We'll kick it off with Colonel Microfood and Miguel Neumann, the CFO. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I am going to try to get my presentation up. Hopefully that would not take the rest of the afternoon, but only 1 minute or two. I'm not that familiar with how this particular platform look. Okay, it looks like I can see. Yeah, so it looks like you guys can see my slides. So without further ado, my name, as said, Miguel Neumann. I'm the CFO for Carno, and I want to start not with a question, but with a statement. That is that simply you cannot feed 10 billion people with cows. And this is something that has been debated. We are not yet there. We're not 10 billion in this world, but we'll get there inevitably and quite soon. And if you do the math of the square footage that you need to put that amount of cattle, you just don't have enough land in the planet. So we're starting from a point of view that we have a real problem. The way in which most of the food is produced today, it's just simply not sufficient for the amount of people that we have in the world. So we are trying to solve that, and I will try to, as fast as I can, convey that so then we can go more into details. So how and why was born this company? I mean, we're innovators, and this exact promise what we're trying to solve, and we want to create something that is sustainable. We found an ingredient that is extremely versatile and that is cost effective. And it's based on fungi. It's a fermented product. It has been around for a while, but not in the way that we make it. The product is Colonel Microfood. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what it looks like. This is our CEO, Horacio, making a test of what it looks like. It looks like everyday food. It's no different from what you're used to. It's just that it's made of something else and it's made from something better. So, in fact, what we're looking into is just an ingredient. We don't create products. We allow other companies. There are way too many companies already trying to win a burger world. So we are looking into doing something better, different, and to give the tools to a lot of food producers to start making better food. Our ingredients can be prepared in a wet format, which is a cake or a paste that they can be formed into carnic applications. It's very good to replace meat. And you can dry it into something that resembles more a flour that can be incorporated into a variety of recipes. For example, protein shakes, or to enrich foods that traditionally don't have as many nutrients or proteins. So sorry, this is taking a little bit more. When I'm saying that we are doing something better, an ingredient that is better to what you already have, if you look into the digestibility, the PVCAS, which is the score that you use to assess how much of the actual proteins that a food have get absorbed by your body, our score is pretty high, 1.92%, where the maximum is 1. And we are fairly above a cow, like the one that you have there. So I think it's not only good for people, but also for the environment, where you look into the CO2 emissions, the amount of water that we're using, or the land that we take. We can compare ourselves with cattle, and we are orders of magnitude more sustainable. And even compared with crops, we are faring fairly well. Obviously, we cannot compete with CO2 emissions with a plant, but in all other aspects, we are ahead. So if you ask how this is made, or why, or what's the secret sauce, it's a bioreactor, very similar to what is used to produce or to ferment certain products like yeast, or a little more different to what you see in breweries. But again, a self-contained process that can be replicated and that produces food a lot faster than rearing cattle or waiting for a good season to be able to harvest. So what is that makes this revolution possible? We started innovating from the ground up. We are using AI, we're using robotics. We are changing all the way in which lab processes are done to increase the speed at which we can experiment and to implement all the efficiencies that we're building into a better product that is cheaper to produce and that can reduce the amount of consumption of any type of materials. We're looking now at energy, we're looking into different ways of incorporating circular economy. We just want to make sure that we can produce very good quality protein without having to harm the environment. Now, I'm gonna quickly touch on what the market looks like, but I'm conscious that we don't have a ton of
sorry
time.
for interrupting. Let's try to wrap it up to not go too much beyond the schedule.
I'll wrap it up in a couple of seconds. So it's a multi-billion-dollar business. We have had several players in the industry already pointing out that it's the future of food and that it's a sizable product. We have had several milestones achieved. We have 253 million in pre-sales. We have our own lab. We have patent files. We have great technology. We have had a collaboration with NASA. And we're really inviting people to start helping us in building the future of food. So I'll open to questions, which I suspect are going to come after the other presentations. Thank you very much for allowing a couple more seconds of my time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, Miguel, it seems like you have it all, the right tech, the IP, and even a partnership with NASA. So, you know that, of course, that fungi and fermentation are two of the hottest topics and ingredients and technology in the alternative protein space at the moment for so many good reasons. And you're an ingredients company, so I was just wondering what the go-to-market strategy would then be. How would you reach your growing number of target customers?
Sure. So the way in which we are looking into the market is from the B2B perspective. We understand that we are a small startup and we don't have the size, the scale, or the resources to develop products and to hit thousands or millions of people. We really want to have a great footprint, and the best way of actually achieving that is to make sure that we develop a good relationship with food manufacturers. We have 2 or 3 large international food manufacturers that want our ingredient, that have tried the biomass, they incorporated it into their recipes, and they had great results. So in one of the reports that we had in a burger prototype, they could reduce the amount of salt in the product in about 25% and still have the same results on a sensorial panel. They had a similar taste on a protein shake brand that we have worked with, and they realized that they were enhancing some of the fruital notes, reducing the amount of sugar. So that is our strategy. We're making our biomass available. We're standing on the shoulders of giants and making sure that they do what they do best, which is putting products that people love. That is how we believe that we can really reach a large market very quickly.
Thank you. I would like to hand it over to the jury now, starting with Olga. Maybe if you have a question first.
Absolutely incredible, Miguel. Congratulations on your traction. That's incredible. Question for me, since you're the CFO, could you walk us through kind of how you think about the unit economics? What is sort of, how do you think about the cost of producing a pound of your protein vis-a-vis beef?
Absolutely. I mean, what we have is a price waterfall model when we have looked into everything that goes from the ingredients of the culture media, which is one of the bigger impacts into the price, the cost of electricity, water. And if you put it all together, we created a few different scenarios depending on what jurisdiction we're working on, because depending whether you're producing in LATAM or Europe, the cost of energy and water are quite variable. Also, the cost of labor that we have factored in. So, on a kilo of product, we are currently offering it to food manufacturers in around $3. So between $3 and $3.50. That has a yield of about 69%. So the cost of production of our product is extremely low. We don't have that yield fully realized because in order to be able to get to market, and we are still taking pre-orders because we're going to be on the market by the end of this year, beginning of next, we are working with third-party manufacturers, with fermentators. We have a partnership in place with one of the largest fermentators groups in the world, and that is going to take part of our profit. But in terms of unit economics, it's extremely profitable to produce this product. Oh,
Thanks.
I'm afraid I just scared Olga off.
No, I'm sure there's
a few questions.
Yeah, Andrew or Eric?
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, very inspiring. I had two questions at least. What is your clear value proposition versus competitors? I'm not talking about cows or stuff like this, but you are not the only one to produce from fungus. So what is your product so special, or why is it so special compared with the competition?
So I think this is a question that comes over and over again, and there are two answers to that. One has to do with the R&D arm of our company. By having done a lot of innovation in laboratory experimentation, we can produce, adapt, and test different things at a speed that a normal producer that has a single formula can't. That is to differentiate ourselves. But to be frank with you, from a purely financial perspective, our product isn't much different today from what you can get from an off-formula 3F Bio or other companies like that. What really is different is how we get to this extremely good quality biomass protein product. And we do it in a more efficient way. We have patents and we are filing more patents for an improved process that allows us to get to the same result with less energy, with less water. And we are looking into even more ways of feeding the fungi with cheaper sugars. In a way, what we're really looking into is to try to create the same product that we have already gotten to the same product that other people have, but to do it at a fraction of the cost, to have a better capillarity, to be able to reach to the people that need it the most, not just to mature Western markets.
Yeah. And the second one was, if I may, which type of substrates are you using? You are
Sorry.
Sugar substrates.
So the fungi has a culture media that is based, the source of carbon is dextrose. We have been able to actually make it work with molasses that are much more economical. And we are looking into additional methods to use different type of products that can grow, that can allow us. So part of exploration that we're doing with NASA is how to make that fungi to also grow in harsh environments with a view to be able to produce for long-term missions. Because if you're going to Mars, you have 1.5 year in and all the way back. That does not allow for any animal product to last long enough. So we are trying to see if there's a way that we can produce either after landing in Mars something, or if it's, we don't think that we're going to be able to produce to run a bioreactor on the ship, but we can ship something that will allow us to produce in Mars.
Okay, thanks.
So if there's time left, Albrecht, is there time left or?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, we'll have a couple of moments.
All right. Also a big hello to Eric. It's been maybe 2 or 3 years since we connected. So great to see you again. Miguel, quick question. I'd really love to understand the distinction between what you can do from a concept perspective versus a scalable, commercially viable business. Where are you today in terms of volumes on a kind of daily basis, and where do you see yourselves in the next, let's say, 18 months to 2 years, realistically speaking, given that you're using bioreactors and so on?
So I can give you a breakdown of where we are, what we have achieved. So we were able to produce our biomass on our laboratory and with third-party laboratories at a small scale. So we're talking about producing a volume of 10, 20 kilos a day. And we are currently testing with our industrial partners progressively larger batches, going from 12 liters to 15,000 liters to 50,000 liters. That is something that is happening this quarter. So we are waiting to see the results coming back. The biggest challenge that we had is that we're going for a continuous production. We're not doing a fed batch or batch production. That is the only way in which we can get the actual price that we're aiming for. So realistically speaking, if we don't find any hurdle along the way, we would expect to be producing in 18 months 50 cubic meters, in bioreactors of 50 cubic meters, that would allow us to have a couple hundred tons production per month. That is something that we see absolutely possible. And this is thanks to be working very closely with an expert in fermentation in the field, someone that comes from the FMCG world. And without them, it probably will be much longer given the amount of infrastructure costs that we would have.
So in 18 months, you expect to get to around 200 tons a month? Is that the number, or was it 200,000? Forgive me.
Sorry, per month, I would imagine that will be at a minimum of between 200 and 400 tons of production. It's not going to be massive, but it should be replicable. And what we expect is to get to the end of this year with a clear picture of what is the infrastructure that our partner can give us in order to start scaling up. And again, we have now demand way in excess of a few thousands per month. It's just that we want to make sure that we have the right infrastructure to start serving those contracts.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that you have the demand. I'm more wondering about the supply. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. Do you anticipate that there's additional steps beyond the bioreactor to make this product ready for consumption or at least use as a B2B product? So, once you've done the bioreaction production side and you've got your 200 tons, that there's a number of steps to get it to the point where it's useful, or is it pretty simple post bioreaction?
So there are 2 or 3 processes. I mean, obviously you need to deactivate the biomass, and after that, there's an element of water that you need to reduce on the content depending on what use you're planning to do. For carnic replacement, you still have a relatively large water content, and that is something that you want to do in order to conserve the texture. So when you start lowering the amount of water under 70% or 80%, you'll start having more solids than what you find in an animal and start tasting floury, problem that you have with soy flour. When you're doing something, with a soy isolate, when you're doing milkshakes, or if you're using it as an aggregate in cheese, that is a completely different story. You can just keep drying it up to a 50-60%. I mean, we have tested all those products, all those processes. The product is ready. I mean, once it's dry, it's much more stable. And we already have incorporated in sweet recipes. You can do some cookies. It actually tastes quite nicely on its own. So you don't have the problem that you have with PE isolate in terms of the flavor, the aftertaste, and the masking that you need to do. That is something that is quite unique. And also, particularly for carnic products, you have a strong umami component that allows to actually enhance some of the flavor. I mean, I'm not the best person to reply to the technical questions. We have engineers with PhDs that probably will do it much better. So feel free to please ask afterwards and get in touch with the rest of the team. Probably they'll be just giving me some slack in the background for trying to speak beyond what I understand.
Your answers were great. You kept it simple for dumb people like me, so very good.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew. Thanks a lot, Miguel, for going into more detail here. And it's all about making really the connection here. And then there will be, of course, the opportunity for following up afterwards. But now we should actually move on to the second presentation by Kinokotech and Jasmine Ravid. So if you're ready, Jasmine, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely. Give me a second. Yeah, is it good?
Yeah, looking good.
Yeah, great, because I only can see my own presentation. So if something went wrong, let me know. So hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kinokotech. I founded the company doing my PhD in biology. And I mean, we all know the problem. Miguel just talked about it. We all know the numbers. We know that for us and for our planet to thrive, we must change. And change is happening. Nowadays, people are changing their diets and their attitudes to eat healthier and more sustainable. The plant-based market is growing yearly, and we all know that recent pandemic has just enhanced the growth of this sector. And yet the evolution of alternative protein has been accelerated with the creation of more and more complex products that focus on mimicking the taste and texture of animal-based products. And this movement to improve taste and texture has sacrificed many of the health benefits and the good nutritional value of plant proteins, ending with heavily processed and expensive products. And we in Kinokotech have decided to take a different route, taking the next step in the evolution of alternative protein by tracking back to the natural and protein-rich plant and use our technology to help nature turn these superfoods into extra superfoods. We basically developed a unique technology, a patent already been applied for this technology, that allows us to grow the filamentous part of the fungi called mycelium, sometimes referred to as the root-like structure of the fungi. And we are using the fungi as a biological processing system, used instead of mechanical or chemical methods to improve the plant. That is why we can reach desirable mouthfeel and texture without the need for any additional processing. We grow the mycelium on a mixture of legumes and grains, and after 5 days of growing, we have the raw material, which we can harvest, cook, and it's ready to eat. Here you can see the magic that happens during our fermentation. A 35% increase in the protein, 30% decrease in the carbohydrate. The protein amino acid composition is changed to a complete high-quality protein with all 9 essential amino acids, and it changed completely the taste and the texture, creating a fibrous texture and rich umami flavor. Our growing platform is sustainable, it's zero waste, indoor, and we can grow food anywhere in any climate. We are already producing on small scale, and after scaling, we could grow in a 4 square meter room, about 18 tons yearly. We have a strong team of talented and innovative women with an extensive scientific background, all met in the Hebrew U doing our PhDs. Our product can be alternative to both meat and plants, such as pea and soy. And we are mainly a B2B company. We see Kinoko as the ingredient of choice for food producers who are looking to create delicious products while keeping them healthy and natural. We envision the future where our food system is sustainable, it's healthy, and our food tastes great. And we are really inviting like-minded food companies to reach out and see if we can do great things together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine. Perfect timing.
I will go back to you. Yes.
Yes, all good. Thank you. So to kick it off, I mean, you have something in common with a couple of other companies. That's the mycelium and of course the fermentation technology. But you said you emphasize that the legumes and this combination of tech and mycelium will make the difference, and you sort of programming, as I understand it, in a more direct way, the texture, mouthfeel, and so on of your of any kind of products that could come from that. Can you go a bit deeper into that part of your technology?
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, we are not trying to be meat analogs. We are not creating another a protein isolate from fungi. We said we want to have it all. We want to come out of the biological process with the nutritional value, with the texture, with the taste, and kind of like use the fermentation to create super plants. Do a processing system that does not that creates the texture and taste that we really crave, and we are not getting usually from plant ingredient. By doing something biological and natural, and not chemical or physical, and by doing so, really enhancing the nutritional value and not decreasing it.
Thanks.
Just to build on what Albrecht said, which type of vegetables or plants are you using?
Mm-hmm. We can use basically any kinds of legumes and grains. We can use any kind of plant ingredient, but we have a limit with the water content. So if you will give me like a very wet, like cucumber, I cannot grow on that. I need something that is drier. So I can work either with legumes and grain after I soak it a bit, or I can work with vegetables after I dehydrate it a bit, but I can grow on pretty much everything.
And what is roughly the process time?
5 days. This is like the maximum. We can also go down to 3. We are now working to shorten
it. Any risk of contamination?
The risk of contamination, well, we are working with only fungi strains. They are edible. They don't have any mycotoxins, of course. And it's very easy to identify contamination. Even if contamination happens, and it doesn't happen a lot, it's very easy to identify it and just to get rid of the infected batch. And also because we are not using big fermenters, we are not doing liquid state fermentation, we are doing solid state fermentation. So we are working in trays. It's also contained. So if there is kind of contamination, you just get rid of one tray and it's not infected the whole batch.
Thanks.
Quick question from me. Yeah, sure. Quick question from me. What is the shelf life for the product?
So it can be kept frozen in -18. It can be kept pretty much indefinitely, and it does not lose texture or taste with the freezing and defreezing. In shelf life, like in room temperature, it doesn't keep very well. But refrigerated, unless we dehydrate it and create some kind of flour, we can also create, but fresh or wet raw material cannot be kept in room temperatures. It can be kept in the refrigerator, depending on the packaging. It can be kept for several weeks to 1 month, but we are still checking shelf life using different packaging. So I don't have a real clear answer on that.
That makes sense. And what is your ideal customer?
So basically, we are approaching now CPGs, and the ideal customer for us is a food company that is really interested to get into this plant-based market, but doing it in a healthy and clean version way, and is also open to innovation in this field, because we are not producing, as I said, protein powder that you can just take the soy isolate out and put our protein powder in. It's a different thing, and it needs to be approached differently. So we are really looking for food companies that are open-minded and want to try something new and really create the next level of products.
Amazing, thank you.
Thanks. Andrew?
Yes, great. So looking at the product itself, and I've also seen it on your website, it has characteristics in terms of look, look and feel of tempeh. So I saw your product and I thought, this is a tempeh company. Where's the innovation in that? Now I'm guessing your photography and your execution was keeping the ingredient very much in its kind of final form without necessarily, to your point, drying it, turning it into flour, looking at other modes or other formats. What are your thoughts on in terms of two things? One, your go-to-market. What are you actually bringing to market? Is it the sort of more pure tempeh style product, or are you looking at other executions? So that would be part one of the question. And I'll leave part two of the question until you've answered part one. Otherwise, we're both going to get confused.
Okay. So first of all, yeah, great question. I feel like the looks of the product really resembles tempeh, and it's easier for us to explain it by saying, yeah, it's a tempeh-like product. But once you taste it, you realize that it's nothing like tempeh. The taste is completely different, and the texture is completely different because we are using different substrates and different fungi strains. So only the look is something that you recognize and is similar. And with the go-to-market, then obviously, if we will approach in a geographic that tempeh is something that is already being sold, it will be easier for us in the look aspect. In Israel, for example, there's almost no tempeh, so nobody knows the look of it. This is why with the go-to-market strategy, we are planning to start with more processed product, this ready-to-eat meals. Once you cook it, maybe you saw in the pictures, it loses this kind of tempeh resemblance and looks a bit more like pieces of meat. So this ready-to-eat or ready-to-cook meals, or something that is kind of a filling that is inside the dumpling or a gyoza, that people can eat it and enjoy the flavor and the texture, but without having to see the difference in the look that they are not used to seeing.
Great. Second question, you were showing photographs of what looked like kind of baking trays in racks that you would use in a kind of commercial kitchen environment. What kind of volumes are you guys achieving, and where do you see those volumes getting to over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
So we are already producing we can go up to 20 or 30 kilos in 5 days of growing, and we are still doing it in our own lab. We are now designing a first pilot production facility that will be built at the end of this year. And in this facility, we will start by aiming at 1 ton of growth in 1 month, and then it will be able to scale to 8 ton in 1 month. And from there, it's only a matter of space. Once we have the line of the product ready, my iRobot is just started, so I will shut it off. Wait. Yeah, I know. So once we will have the the line ready, we will just need to have more growing space to put our racks, and we can really up the scale very quickly. The solid state fermentation platform is easier to scale than the liquid state. It has a lower cost structure. We are using existing infrastructures. So we really believe it will be very easy for us to scale once we will have the first production line working, and we know that it works with 1 ton. It will be really easy for us to scale it fast.
Perfect. I've got more questions, but I think Scott Chaplin had a question. I don't know if somebody wants to bring that up.
Yeah, it's about
Albrecht. Albrecht, do you want to finish off with that one, or should we be done?
If you can, now we have a few minutes left. So Yasmin, if you can go into that. The question is, you can apply extrusion to your innovation, to your solution here as well, if there's a combination in that helps.
Sure, you can apply extrusion. I mean, you can dehydrate it, powder it, and then extrude it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because, I mean, it comes out with a great fibrous texture. So I really don't see the point in dehydrating it, powder it, and then extruding it. So you can do it, but then again, why?
I think Scott's perspective is that it increases the volume, but your production process is those trays of growing. That's your vertical farm effectively, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like vertical farming, just from bottom to up in trays, exactly. And we get this raw material with about 60% water content, which you can eat, as it is. No need to extrude it. So
there's another question from the audience, from Adelmo Monsalve Gonzalez. So yeah, you can read it yourself here about the NT nutritional factors.
So the fermentation, when the fungi is growing, it's partly digesting the plant ingredient and really neutralizing the anti-nutritional content in it. This is also why we are getting higher digestibility score with the protein, and so just improving the nutritional value of the whole content.
And a very specific question just came up from
But it's from Colonel, so I'm not sure allowed to have one company ask another company questions.
That's up to you, Yasmin. If you like, you can answer that one. Otherwise, I would say we can ask one more.
Yeah, the 30 kilo in 5 days, cubic meters, it's just my small incubator in my lab. No cubic, I don't know, just 20 centimeters, I don't know. No space at all.
That's a very good answer, I would say. So, Eric or Olga, do you have any follow-up questions? Or also Andrew at this point? We have time for one more, I would say.
Any idea what the production cost?
Again, what is the question?
What is the production cost for 1 kg of proteins to compare with your previous the pre-startup?
Yeah, so after scaling, we are expecting to get a price parity with the tofu. It's as simple and basic as possible.
Thanks. Eric, anything anymore? You seem to be pondering.
I was just curious to taste it, because you say a few times that it's very tasty and very I feel I would like to taste.
I feel like I would like to give taste to everyone and really like have them. If anyone arrives to Tel Aviv, they are welcome to come.
Yeah, let's go to Tel Aviv. Okay.
Yeah, come to Tel Aviv.
It looks good. It's interesting that you said it doesn't have the taste of Tempe, but it has the looks, as Andrew said. But then you say the way you describe it, and it looks tasty. So it would be really great to try samples. Okay, thanks a lot, Yasmin, and thanks to the jurors here. Let's move on to the last startup in today's session. That's Mzansi meat from South Africa. And the speaker is Tasneem Karodia, the CFO of Mzansi meat.
Yes, that's me. I'm just getting the presentation. I hope everyone can see it. Amazing.
Yeah,
so I'm really excited to be able to share more about what we're doing. Just for everyone to know, I think one of the key things about Mzansi and why the name was chosen, it's the colloquial term for South Africa. And that's kind of also what drew me to it. I saw the Mzansi logo in a GFI presentation, and I was looking to move into alternative proteins, but I could only see places in the US, Europe, and kind of everywhere else, and not in Africa. So it was very appealing to me to come back to South Africa and be a part of shaping an industry. And Mzansi, we really want to make better meat for Africa. That is our goal. South Africans in general just love meat and seriously love it. It's part of our culture. It's part of our traditions. It's really, really ingrained in us. A lot of how people establish wealth is also how much cattle people have traditionally. One of the key things in South Africa is our National Heritage Day on the 24th of September has informally been called Braai Day or Barbecue Day. So it really is a testament to how much we love meat. I think a lot of people would be quite surprised, but we do have quite a large meat market. I think, it's $17 billion US, and it's quite significant, and it's quite a significant market to tackle. I know people are quite surprised when we say that, South Africans are ready for cultivated meat, but we have early research that really does say this. 53% of South Africans, and across income groups and demographics, are likely to purchase cultivated meat. And knowing that it's at a higher price point, which is very encouraging for us and very exciting that we are starting to do this now. So I think for us being in South Africa, the key thing as well is understanding that we don't just have an impact here, but we will have an impact across Africa. And by 20 people want to be part of, bringing alternative proteins into Africa that before, they have the chance to have industrial agricultural processes in place. So really kind of leapfrog past that. I'm supported by two wonderful co-founders, Brett and Jay, and they really have a great in-depth alternative protein experience. Brett, who spent an extensive amount of time at Fry's and places like ProVeg as well, understands the market and the marketing that's required to actually get South Africans over the line. And then Jay, who really has this extensive network in the alternative protein space and cultivated meat has really been able to get us the right talent and get us the right people to speak to and get us to this point. We started last year in 2020, not the easiest year to start, but an exciting time nonetheless. And really last year was really about building the team, getting some capital and getting the lab in place. And so we really do have that. And speaking to the team, we have a diverse team with kind of critical expertise. On the R&D side, our CTO, Angela, is really going to be critical from now until the scaling phase. She's talented in mycology, and we're working on mycelia scaffolds that'll hopefully help from the scaling process. She's also very talented and understands bioreactors, so it's going to be critical when we get to that stage. Colin, who is very talented, and our CSO is talented in like cell culture and fibroblasts, and so he's working on our early cell line development with Kyle, who really is a phenomenal molecular and cell biologist. We're supported by Abzi, who's our public relations officer, but really has this extensive experience in food service. She works with chefs and is really tied to the meat industry, and it's really great to get that perspective and also get early insights to really bring this and take this to market. We're also supported by a number of phenomenal advisors across the R&D side, a lot of people that have worked in this space and really have an in-depth knowledge that's helping us to keep quite small here, but really get that global talent and bring it into South Africa. And then as well as on the business side, I think one of the key things for us is really, Ryan Bethencourt has been really instrumental in helping us get to this point and really believing that Africa has this great opportunity, and we believe it too. And it's been really great to really get to this point. That's kind of, I noticed, I don't even know if I made it to 3 minutes, but that's kind of the presentation. I'd love to hear some questions.
Thanks, Tasneem. Roughly, I think that's just fine. I'll take the first one. Thanks for the presentation. To kick it off, of course, I was very happy to see the first cell egg startup from South Africa with you guys, and then also with Brett, one of my former colleagues at ProteinX, to be part of the founding team. But still, we see a lot of cell egg companies now that try to differentiate, or primarily try to differentiate through by the market where they are based and where they're looking at, in your case, South Africa, or the kind of meat they are going to produce. Can you go a bit deeper into what is your USP, how you differentiate from the growing number of other cultivated meat startups? Because others could come to South Africa, so the market itself, of course, you have the market knowledge is helpful, but not the key differentiator, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we do, I know for some people it doesn't seem like important that we've got this regional expertise, but for us it is important because based on the South African culture, it is important to have a South African team that can bring this to market. So that we do see that as one of them. But on top of that, I think it is, when we think about a technology, we are trying to move and accelerate through to scaling, especially, and we think that's where we'll be able to differentiate. Our scaffolding, we think, is going to really get us ahead of the curve with our IP and be able to produce low cost, as well as bring taste and flavor to the meat. And then as well as on the bioreactor side, be able to really accelerate the process that we need to on that side. So that's kind of where we see our USP.
Anyone want to follow up on this? Andrew or Olga? Feel free to go ahead.
Olga?
Sure. Could you walk us through sort of historical protein alternatives adoption and sort of the demand for such in South Africa? Like, is tofu in tempeh? Is that a thing? Clearly braai is there, but what's sort of the consumer trend and consumer sentiment around protein?
What a great question. I think we have a vegetarian market. It's very small. We have a big brand called Fries, and they've been bought by Live Kindly, and now they're doing distribution internationally as well. And so there is a market for it, but it's not necessarily exploded. The one thing that we have seen, though, is we've seen more alternatives coming into the country, so Beyond and Oatly, and that has gained massive traction and is indicative of where South Africans are even moving. I think, it's a big jump to convince everyone to be vegan or vegetarian, but it's not a big jump when you have things that taste and mimic the taste of meat. And so we have seen with the emergence of these products that are coming into the country, a lot more uptake of it through food service as well as retail. They're often out of stock. We can't really even feed the demand for some of them, which is really, really encouraging to see.
Maybe I should turn my mute off. Last time I think we spoke to your organization, there were some changes obviously in the team. I'm trying to put my remembering from a meat perspective, what meats were you guys focusing on?
Great question. We're focusing on beef at the moment, and so our first products that we'll take to market will be burgers and processed type meat, so sausages as well, things that can be barbecued, especially because that's important for our South African consumers. We do eventually, part of what we want to work on is across the board. Chicken is very important as a protein in South Africa, and so is pork and so is lamb, but beef is what we want to tackle for the next while until we get to market.
And where's the regulatory environment in South Africa as far as these types of products are concerned at this point?
So South Africa doesn't have things like a Novel Food Act, and so there's also quite a number of acts that govern food in general, quite a few state departments that govern it. And so we've been encouraged by the response we've received. We're already starting to engage quite early with them. We are also encouraged by the fact that we don't have massive lobbying groups, and so there isn't a lot of pushback coming from the meat industry. We've heard early sentiments. They know that it's coming. They still think that they've got quite a defensible market, and so they're not necessarily pushing anything against it. And so the way that the regulation is at the moment doesn't necessarily talk about cultivated meat, but it from our chats with government liaisons and a few other legal discussions that we are having, we do suspect that it'll be an easier sell than all the hurdles that have to be gone through in the US.
And South Africa is, sorry, I'm getting some feedback from somebody. South Africa is 25, 30 million people, something along those lines? Population-wise?
Actually, it's a bit bigger. It's about 58 million. 58 million.
Oh, 58, got it. Do you see this being an opportunity for Mzansi outside of South Africa as well? Do you see it being something that you can take into other countries within the Africa region?
Absolutely, and that it really is our goal. So South Africa is our core market now. Once we are established with our R&D and everything in place, we have plans and we're starting to build out an Africa strategy where the core markets are. It is going to depend really on a few factors. So there will be, once we are in retail here and we've got good connections to retail in South Africa, and some of the retailers already here have cold chain distribution up to stores throughout Africa. So once we're here, there'll be discussions about moving some of that product across Africa through their cold chain distribution. For areas that don't have good cold chain distribution, we are thinking about what kind of product can we also take there. Especially being from Africa, we are concerned about food security. So we want to be able to take a product that can also travel well and also hit the protein deficit that we have across the continent. So we are thinking about what other product could go and that we can cater to lower income groups and cater to the protein issue across the continent.
Got it. Last question, if I may. Fetal bovine serum, or have you guys managed to fix that?
Not yet. It's definitely part of the plans. We're hoping by the end of the year that we are able to be serum free, but not at the moment.
Got it. And then you've got the whole kind of commercialization to scale challenge that everybody has in this space. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys tackle that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely interesting. Eric, you have any questions, anything to ask now?
Yes, little one. Always around the same thing about the taste. Have you been able already to taste your product and to see what it looks like in terms of comparing with a real meat? Hello, did you hear me?
have a connection problem here.
It is real meat.
Yeah, it is real meat, but I think
Eric, it's at the cellular level, it's the same thing as everything else.
Yeah, but is
sorry,
the taste the same? That's
the taste.
What about the taste?
Taste is definitely the same. Unfortunately, not yet ready for people to taste it, but we're hoping by the end of the year as well to have some early tasting.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's quite fast. So definitely curious to hear more about it at the end of the year. Yeah, Andrew, Olga, Eric, any remaining questions at this point?
I'm kind of interested in the fact that the regulatory environment is very different in South Africa versus the US, and I'm not sure if that means you guys are going to be able to get deregulated faster and bring it to market faster, like those, for example, in Singapore, or whether because it's not as regulated in the same way, whether that means that you'll get a hard no faster, and it'll be more difficult to get these guys to allow you to sell the product to end consumer.
I think it's a good point, and I think it is something that we early on, when we just started having the engagements, we also were, slightly worried about. But having initial conversations with some people and some of the conversations with government, a lot of them are interested in it and are positive about its impact. And so, having a few people already being excited about it in government is only going to be helpful for us. And so we are lucky that South Africa also looks to other countries to see what they're doing and will also follow suit. So, with Singapore already having this positive regulation, South Africa will probably look to that country and then also make a call based on that. And so the fact that someone else in the market has already done it is also something that South Africa will look at.
Thank you.
So I think we're done. There's nothing super pressing at this point. There will be the opportunity, of course, to connect, and I'm sure all our jurors are available for questions via email, and of course you can connect on LinkedIn or use the chat here to share your contact details right away. It was really a pleasure to be here today with all of you. Thanks a lot to the fantastic jury, to Olga, Andrew, and Eric, and of course, above all, to the 3 startups, to Kinokotech, Mzansi Meat, and Kernel Microfood, that is Miguel, Yasmin, and Tasneem, for pitching and for answering the tough, sometimes hard but fair questions. That's always the best approach, I think, and we've learned a lot today, and I'm sure we'll hear much more from all of you in terms of what's the latest development with your fermentation and cell egg projects. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.